right. Hi, everybody. This is the second episode I'm doing on night eating syndrome this week. If you missed the last one, it was how my night eating syndrome started, starting with my eating disorder and how that led to night eating syndrome, which for those of you who might be new to this, is getting up in the night, eating most of your calories and feeling like you need to eat to go back to sleep. So for me, this was a result of my eating disorder and something I dealt with for almost 15 years. I didn't fully overcome it until last year. So today I want to talk about something pretty important, which is all the things that I tried along the way. So for those of you who are watching who are going through this, you might be trying some of these, you might be wondering why they're not working. So I want to share my whole journey with you. And then Friday, I'm going to talk about what finally brought me to full freedom. So, as you guys knew in my last one, I talked about my eating disorder, how that started everything, and then that led to me trying various things to try and overcome it. So, let's start back to young Jillian, about 17, 18 years old. So, at this point, I was pretty aware that I had an eating disorder, but I never received proper help for it. This is partly because I'm the kind of person who's really good at acting like everything's fine and that I can take care of it myself. I've learned through all of this that that's not the right way, that you do need help. And if you are struggling with an eating disorder, 100%, please ask for help. So around 17, 18, I moved back from Ireland. I had my eating disorder. I was aware that it was an issue because I was visually underweight. So I took it upon myself to put the weight back on, again, without professional help, but I wasn't dealing with the underlying issues. So at this point, I was putting on weight, but I still had amenorrhea, which means missing of your period, which can happen to athletes or anybody who's underweight, women who don't have enough body fat to have a period. So I had no period for about a year at this point. I'm in high school in grade 12. And I'm still struggling. I'm still getting up in the night and eating. I'm having vicious nightmares. So on the surface, it looked like I was taking care of things, but I was still dealing with all these underlying issues. So in my efforts to try and deal with it myself, which again, I don't recommend, I started eating more, but I ate low carb. So I was stuck in this mentality of I needed rules and guidelines. So I ate low carb, I started exercising. Again, to anyone on the outside watching me, I was like going to the gym, putting on weight, eating a lot, but under the surface was dealing with night eating syndrome, body image issues, anxiety, depression. When you're not getting your period too, this can cause a lot of anxiety, depression. There's a lot of hormonal imbalance. You're not ovulating. You're not getting all the things your body needs. So this went on and followed me through till I have notes here to guide you through the journey. So 17, 18, so I turned 18 in university. And in university, I was like, okay, screw low carb, fuck the diet industry, pardon my French, and started just introducing different things into my diet. So I purposely, when I went to the cafeteria to get my dinner, I'd add in some Oreo cookies, I made sure I had treats every day. I was trying to get out of this restrictive mindset. But I was still having night eating syndrome. I was still waking up in the night. I would eat some of my roommate's food from her fridge. And she's like, where are my yogurts? And I was like, which so many people I know, if you've had roommates, you go through this because you're restricting, you're not buying certain foods, and you're still getting that hunger in the night. So at this point, I was like, well, I need to figure out this whole period thing. I don't have my period. So I went to see a doctor, and the doctor was like, well, just go on the pill. So I was like, magic formula, go back on the pill. This helped me get my period, but just so you guys know, when you're getting a period from the pill, it's not a real period. You're not getting true ovulation. So it wasn't addressing the underlying hormonal imbalances. What I would have loved to have seen was a nutritionist or a doctor to say, hey, you know what? You're not getting your period. This is probably a result of your eating disorder. Let's deal with that. Let's make sure you're eating enough. Let's deal with your stress levels. That would be the ideal solution, and what I hope more doctors will start to do with women, because often we are just thrown the pill, which masks all issues. So I'm in university. have a fake period from the pill. I'm still getting up at night and eating, and I still haven't gotten any real treatment, and I don't know why I'm still getting up to eat in the night. Looking back, I still wasn't eating enough in the day. I had no concept of what this looks like. And the sad part is I did see certain counselors, professionals, and all of which they told me that I was fine and doing everything right. Because again, I was healthy on the outside. I was eating a cookie or two every day, so that makes everything a-okay. But like I said, I'm really good at pretending everything's okay when it's not. And I had all these signs that I still was not nourishing properly. So this followed me through over the years. Over that time, I lived in Paris for a year. I still had it there. I was still looking back, again, eating healthy, eating like balanced, but probably not eating enough for my body's needs. So in Paris, I would get up still, eat in the night, went back to university. And this takes me into my next stage where, again, I was like, I know I can do better. I know I can overcome this. What can I do? So I saw tons of different nutritionists. I did acupuncture. I did raw vegan diet. I spent entire paychecks at Whole Foods. I was like, went into extreme health mode in an effort to overcome this. And because so many experts don't understand this, nutritionists, counselors, psychologists don't really understand night eating syndrome, no one really had the solution for me. No one could really help me. A lot of people, and I know a lot of my clients will say this to me too, people are like, well, just don't get up and eat. Sounds easy, right? But if you have night eating syndrome, like you're getting up and it feels like an addiction, it feels like a need, and you need to eat to go back to sleep. So someone just saying, well, just go back to sleep is actually pretty offensive, because they don't understand like the extreme addictive brain chemistry that's going on when you wake up and it's like urgent and painful and like you have to eat. So at this time, saw several nutritionists. They all had like an extreme like health, clean eating approach, which wasn't super helpful. And I eventually found one actually who acknowledged and realized that I had some issues with food. And she realized that I was afraid of protein, for one thing, which is a weird thing that came from me being obsessed with like the raw vegan health culture. I was afraid to eat enough protein. I was eating like super healthy. So like tons of like superfoods, organic, raw, vegan, again, spending all my money at Whole Foods, but my meals lacked that balance. I wasn't getting enough protein with each meal. I was eating a lot of like natural sugars, a ton of healthy fats. But again, my body was still missing some essential nutrients. So I worked with her over a few years. We also realized that I had some stress and adrenal issues, so we targeted those. And I had phases of freedom during that. I think during those phases, there was a few things going on. It was like either I was in a transitional phase in my life, like a lot of people say, like when they're in a new relationship or they're traveling, sometimes their night eating syndrome goes away. And it's because you're just in this totally new environment. Your brain is distracted by other things, but for me, it would always come back. But there were phases where I was like really into balancing my nutrition and my health. And I do remember having months of freedom during those times, probably because I was taking really good care of my body at last. But then I guess stress would come up, I would go back into some form of restriction, whether I knew it or not, and it would peak during different times. This takes me to my late 20s. So at this point, I'm still dealing with it on and off, but not the extreme. I wasn't getting up several times a night at binging. I was maybe during certain phases getting up once a night and having a snack or a small meal. So this takes me to my late 20s. I went through a very stressful time in my life. I got divorced. I moved to Europe. My whole existence was turned upside down on its head. I had total burnout at this time. Like I could hardly go for a walk. I was so exhausted. I would get up wired in the middle of the night and often eat and need to go back to sleep or just stay up for hours. So my whole hormones, my cortisol, everything was totally shot and off because I was under so much stress. During this phase, which was about a year, I did a lot of ups and downs. So I would go into this major like health, self-care mode, but then I was going through so much that I would backfire. I would drink heavily. I would just say screw it and party because I was going through so much emotionally. What if we eat properly during the day and wake up famished during the night? Should we drink water to curb the... Yeah, so there's several things. If you are eating enough during the day, first of all, I would say work with a professional to make sure that is actually enough, because everyone's concept of enough is different. And if you are active, if you are going through different things hormonally, it can affect our blood sugar, it can affect so many things. So I would say you'd have someone look at your daily diet and truly make sure you're eating enough in the day. And then if you're still getting up hungry, I would say maybe you're not. There's several things going on. It can be hormonally, there's something going on, mentally. In my talk on Friday, I'm going to share what worked for me, and that includes some brain tips, some hormone balancing, and then the nutrition component. So follow along Friday for all of that. I'm not even hungry. I just wake up and eat unconsciously. Yeah, so for some people, it's not even a physical hunger. And again, there can be a lot going on there. It can be an emotional trigger. It can be just that you've built in this habit. You've made that brain pattern so that you're getting up and eating regardless. And that's a hard one to break. And again, I'm going to go over all that on Friday, but know that you're not alone. A lot of people have this. I do feel like it is a physical hunger for some, an emotional hunger for others, and both. For me, it was definitely both over the years, because there were times where I was definitely eating enough, I was bulking in bodybuilding terms, and I would still get up and eat. And that's when I knew it was a mental thing. So I'll get into that. I want to take you guys through the cycle of everything that I went through. So yeah, high stress year, it went on and off there. Eventually, moved back to Canada, found some grounding in my life, got into bodybuilding. This was helpful for me in the terms that it taught me about macronutrients. It taught me to eat enough. I started my first bulk. So for the first time in my life, I had a better concept of what eating enough looked like. But keep in mind, I still had this hardwired pattern as I'm talking about. So I would wake up mentally and physically hungry, or one or the other. And this went on and off for me. I did have success at times, just focusing on blood sugar, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about as the solution as well. And before bed, I would make these hearty flax protein casein puddings, just so that I knew that my blood sugar would be super stable and that I was full going to bed. And this worked on and off. My night eating syndrome during my healthy bodybuilding years was probably very manageable compared to other years, because again, I was eating enough, but I would still have the odd night. Problem is with bodybuilding, there's also cutting phases. So when I did my first competition, I did my first real diet and cut. And this was very challenging with the night eating, because it really peaked it. I wasn't getting enough calories for how much I was working out. And it definitely was an issue and brought it back up again. So eating enough calories during the day is key, in the extreme dieting of bodybuilding was harmful for me. And I was aware of that going into it. I was very conscious of it with my bodybuilding. And I thought if at any point it became a real issue, I would stop. But I did compete. And over the years, I kept competing and going through these bulking and then cutting phases. But as I mentioned previously, even during the bulking phases, so I was eating sometimes 2,600 calories, which was enough, or should be enough technically, for how much I was working out, I would still get up and eat. And that's when I realized, okay, there's a major mental component here. And what was a big turning point for me was I read the book Brain Over Binge. I've talked about this a lot. But I realized reading this book that the binging brain chemistry and patterns are very similar to night eating, because what happens is you create this hardwired habit. So the habit is created from not eating enough. When you first start waking up to eat in the night, for most people, it's going to be because your body is literally starving and trying to protect you. So the reason I started getting up in the first place was I was not eating enough. My body was like, hey, I need to live. So get up and eat. And that same thing often happens with binge eating. Usually binge eating stems from a form of caloric restriction. So I made this connection and I was like, okay, this totally makes sense. And now that I've done this habit over and over and over, it's like I can't ignore it. That's you exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I know it's scary, and it's scary when you're like, I'm eating enough, but I'm still waking up. Please don't let that stop you from eating enough in the day. And hopefully some of these other tools I'm going to share with you will help you. But that's really good that you're eating enough in the day. That's you winning on step one. And also know that like 2,500 calories, if you're active or depending on your age, some people that is not enough. So there's so many things to look into here. But if you're saying you're genuinely not hungry when you wake up, but it's a mental thing, it's likely, again, like I'm talking about this sort of brain component. So we've created this habit. Think about like the wiring in your brain. You've created this like wiring so that like your brain associates waking up with eating. Wake up, eat. It becomes this primal response. You're not even thinking about it. You're just acting. So how do we stop this endless cycle? I know it feels impossible. So when I was preparing for my last competition, I was like, this is my mindset competition. I'm the mindset champion. So I read this book, Brain Over Binge. And what it has you do is really break down why you want to stop. Get really clear with your brain so that your frontal cortex can get up in the night and go, wait, before that primal, like I'm just going to eat, wait. And you can go, okay, is this worth it? You can go over the reasons in your head. No, I've made really clear to myself, I journaled all day why I'm not going to do this. I'm going to pause and not act on it. You are not a total failure. Yeah, it's you probably started it again as a means to survive. So love yourself and thank yourself for helping you survive, and know that you don't have to be trapped in this forever. So the brain component really did help. So I would leave myself notes. I was like little Post-it notes everywhere. I'd worked with even some like natural healers, and I would like tap into my heart. I did hypnotherapy. This is really helpful. I have a hypnotherapy recording free with my ebook, and really worked on that mental part of it. And this for me worked like 90% of the time. I was able to get up, have my pause, and go, okay, this isn't worth it. And I got really clear about why. And my why for me was like, I need to help people overcome this. And if I'm in it, I can't. Also, it's ruining my career because I was like at that point, professional bodybuilder, health and fitness coach. And I was like, this is harmful to all of my goals and not helpful. So I got super, super clear on that and was able to create that mental pause. That being said, I went through my last competition, cut again, and obviously the night eating disorder peaked again. I was trying to prepare for this show, giving everything I got, and I would be getting up and then just totally scrapping my diet. Still doing my best, but continuing this vicious cycle. So if you're dealing with night eating, I actually probably don't compete or do any drastic diets. Probably the worst thing you can do, but it was a passion of mine and I was pursuing it for a while. So after my last show, and again, I didn't come in as lean as I wanted to. The judges said I was looking very like inflamed and watery. And so I was like, okay, screw bodybuilding. I need to take care of myself. At this time, I had a total crash. And I now see that this crash was a blessing because I realized my hormones were totally out of whack. And I knew this because my periods were obscenely painful. I was super moody. My sex drive was shot. My skin, I was breaking out like crazy around my jawline, which I never had before. All these signs. If I had like a couple of drinks, my hangover was next level the next day. Like everything in my body was just telling me something was wrong. I was super tired. My workouts felt crappy. And I was like, I know something's wrong. And I talked to different doctors, professionals. They did like blood work and they're like, you're fine. But I refused to take that as my final answer because I knew something was not right. So this started my deep dive into research and what eventually healed and helped me. And that was like a whole healing protocol. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to get into that on Friday, all the things that I did basically over the past year to bring me to where I am today. So today I sleep peacefully. My hormones are balanced. I feel amazing. I feel energized. I will have the odd night, maybe once a month, whatever it is, where I'll have that urge at night to eat. Hi. And when that happens, I take it as feedback. So I'm no longer in that vicious cycle. If it happens, I can immediately the next day go back into my healthy habits and break the cycle. If you have these days, if some of you are having success and you have a bad night, don't see it as you failed. See it as feedback. Hit that giant reset button. Eat enough the next day. Get back to your protocols that are all listed in my book, and I'll share more of on Friday. And you can totally push through and overcome this. If you're dealing with it right now, you're doing nothing wrong. You're not alone. There is hope. There are answers, and I'm here to help. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a beautiful day. If you are struggling, again, you're not alone. There's hope. And I will see you Friday, 11 a.m. And the next week, we're going to talk more about my book as well. So stay tuned. We have a whole month conversation on night eating syndrome. Love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.